A warm welcome, everyone, to this morning's session on self-doubt and the inner critic. This is the second in a series of leadership development sessions being delivered this year as part of the Scottish Research Leaders Network, which is a collaborative initiative between the universities that you can see here on the screen, but it's open to all those in higher education sector in Scotland. So my name's Dr. Vary Towler, and I am the Researcher Advancement and Culture Manager at the University of Dundee, where I support researchers with their development requirements. I've been doing this role for 2 years now, prior to which I ran my own business in scientific communication using animation. And my collaborator for today, over to you, Gabrielle.
Everyone, so I'm Dr. Gabrielle Anderson. I am based at Hereward University and I work as a research and development consultant. So I lead on the training and development opportunities for researchers at the moment, focusing on the early career researchers. And it's my pleasure to be co-facilitating with Mari today.
Gabrielle.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll gather pre and post workshop surveys for evaluation purposes. So Gabrielle's going to post the link to this evaluation form into the chat just now. So we would be very grateful if you would take the time just to fill this out, and I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that just now. Yep. Have you popped it into the chat, Gabrielle?
There it goes. Hopefully that should work.
Yep. Okay, so if you just want to click onto that link, please, and fill in the pre-workshop evaluation, that would be most appreciated. Thank you.
I see that some people are coming in. Welcome everyone to the session. What we're asking everyone at the moment is to fill out the pre-session evaluation form. So I'll pop it in the chat because I don't know if those who just joined, whether you're able to see it in the chat or not.
Just give you another minute to fill that in for those who are just joining. Okay, so I think we'll just get on with the agenda. So, as I said, we want to give you a warm welcome today and invite you to be intentional with your time this morning and be present with us if you can be. Thank you. So, any things like emails, phones, etc., if you can switch off those notifications and take in what we're saying, it will be you that benefits from that. We're going to cover some topic theory on self-doubt and the inner critic and share some key resources with you as well. There will be some peer group discussions in breakout rooms. If you don't want to go into a breakout room, if that's not your comfort zone, then just stay in the main room and switch off your camera and mute yourself for those group discussions. And then we'll feed back to the rest of the room afterwards and what you discussed in those rooms. And then there will be a post-form evaluation at the end as well. So only the theory and the key resources will be recorded. We will remove any personal information from the recordings. So please turn off your cameras and mics if you don't wish to be recorded. You can also use the chat function at any time, and there's going to be other options for engaging throughout as well. So yeah, just some resources that we have to accompany this, there's a lovely workbook that's been created by three people at the University of Cardiff, Monica Buss, Rhys Denton, and Jonathan Morris. So they've created a lovely workbook that you can use accompanying this session. And just to give an attribution as well, so these sessions are based on the Future Leader Fellows Development Network leadership retreat materials, which have been developed by Tracy Steed and Steve Joy. And this work was funded by the UKRI, and the resources have then been shared with us so that we can deliver these sessions with you. So thanks to Tracy and Steve for all their hard work putting the resources together. Just some technicalities for you. So the Scottish Research Leaders Network has been set up with the aim to make research leadership training accessible and available to all Scottish researchers and build a connected community of research leaders who collectively strengthen Scotland's research cultures. The network is open to all staff in participating Scottish institutions who are aspiring new or established research leaders. And we consider research leader to include a wide range of potential staff, including academics, postdocs, and research supporting staff. And anybody really who wants to hone their leadership skills can take part in this programme. There are monthly online sessions which are optional to attend because each session will be recorded and we will share that recording. But they will provide tools and ideas for leadership and the opportunity as well for peer learning and networking. So this is often where we get a lot of our learning from, is learning from one another and our peers who are in a similar situation to us, maybe stepping into a new leadership role. So yeah, part of the session will be recorded. So if you don't want to be seen, as I said, turn off your camera. It will be added to a YouTube channel eventually once we've edited out any personal information. So that won't be included on the recording. Breakout rooms will be used today with options to join a quiet breakout room. So if, as I said, if you don't want to go into the breakout room, you can just remain in the main room. And if you're not able to use your camera or mic, or if you need to opt out, then just do that as well. And the slides will be shared as a PDF after the session. So just a quick recap of the previous session, which was building self-awareness for leadership. This was delivered by Sophie Morris and Paula Sladinskia. And in this, they looked at the helicopter view and also Kouzes and Posner's 5 practices model. You had time in that one, in that session, to reflect and think about your enablers and blockers as leaders, and did some reflective practice to recognise that not everything that works will need to continue, and not everything that is blocking you, blocking progress must stop. So we're going to build on that self-awareness today in this session. There's also some amazing videos that again were created by Tracy Steed that are on the Imperial College London website. So the link is there in the slides for you to have a look at those if you want to delve deeper into some more resources. So this is a quote from Brené Brown, who says that leaders must either invest a reasonable amount of time attending to fears and feelings or squander an unreasonable amount of time trying to manage ineffective and unproductive behaviour. And Brené Brown is an expert. She's known for her work on shame, vulnerability, and leadership, and for her widely viewed TED Talk, which has now nearly had 70 million views. I can't believe that. She's written 6 #1 New York Times best-selling books and hosted 2 podcasts. So if you're into this, certainly check out her podcast as well. But what the quote reminds us is it highlights that one of the key challenges around managing and leading people is that we're all driven by emotions. And if we don't take the time to acknowledge this and pay attention to those emotions, then we're not going to become good, empathetic leaders. When we lead with emotional intelligence, we don't lose authenticity, but we gain influence and create spaces where people feel safe to engage and grow. And these leadership skills can be learned, and we'll provide you with some strategies to help you with that today. So, there are people that we know who are maybe, more in tune with their emotions or more intuitive to others' emotions. But everybody can learn these new skills. So this slide shows the emotional intelligence pathway, or EQ pathway. Does anyone know what EQ stands for? You can type it into the chat box if you do. Anybody know? I know there's some people who'll know that, but yep, Catherine, that's right. Emotional quotient is what it stands for. And it refers to a person's ability to understand, manage, and utilize their emotions effectively, both in themselves as well as in others. Emotionally intelligent leadership is really important as there is a proven correlation between this and successful leadership. So, can you think of an example of somebody who you think is a good leader, and are they in tune with their emotions? Equally, can you think of a bad leader or somebody who seems to be completely unaware of their emotions? And I'm sure we can all think of examples of that. People often make decisions based on their emotions, and research from Kouzes and Posner shows that the traits people value in their leaders are generally EQ based traits. And people often get promoted based on their competence at completing tasks, but they now need to deal with people. So that is, what got you here won't get you there. So the first step on the EQ pathway is to notice. To notice our emotions and being able to name them. So name that feeling. An analogy is sort of going to the doctor with a stomach ache. And if you can't describe what you're feeling, then the doctor can't accurately prescribe the correct medicine to help. They can only give general advice that probably won't help. So if you can name and notice and name your emotions, you can then understand and decide whether that's helping you or not. And this can help you move towards logical thinking. You can then actively choose to make a change and communicate or act differently in a certain situation. So, having this emotional self awareness and emotional literacy is the first step on the EQ pathway. And actually, there's so many emotions out there that we need to notice and name and be aware of. And some of these are on this emotions wheel. So this is quite an interesting tool, and some people, who are leaders have this printed out and have it in their office, to help their colleagues and themselves to name and notice their emotions. It helps people to articulate their feelings, helping individuals enhance their emotional intelligence and improve communication. So looking at all the emotions that are here can help you name and understand those different emotions. It's an alternative tool to the one that is in the resources booklet, which is on workbook pages 12 and 13. And it helps us to, as I said, to articulate these. So how's everyone feeling today? Can you type it into the chat box for me and let's see what a mix of emotions are out there currently? Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you why you're feeling that way. So how's everyone feeling? Just type something into the chat box for me. Okay, we've got overwhelmed. Yep, that's a common one. Tired, pressured, cheeky. Good, says Gabrielle. Joyful, inquisitive, hopeful, tired but optimistic, curious, calm, distant, optimistic, unfocused, helpless, tired, neutral. The coldness today is making me feel a bit apathetic. Yes, curious, interested, stressed, fragile. Okay, brilliant. So just again, in a short space of time, asking you that question, it's just highlighted how many emotional states there are for us all to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And of course, these emotions can then impact how we're feeling. Another one's come in there, anxious as well. Oh, I'll just mute you there. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. So This model is called the comfort, stretch, and panic model, and it was developed by Carol Ronke. It's based on the Yerkes-Dodson law, which suggests that optimal performance occurs under moderate pressure. And this model divides experiences into three distinct zones, shown on this diagram. So the first one is in the comfort zone, where we feel safe, secure, and at ease. Activities in this zone are familiar things that we do, routine things that we do every day, requiring little effort or risk. But spending too much time in this zone can lead to boredom, stagnation, and, and a lack of personal growth. The next circle out, the yellow circle, looks at the stretch zone, and this represents the optimal zone for growth and learning. Here, individuals face manageable challenges that push their limits without overwhelming them. Engaging activities in this zone can lead to skill development, increased confidence, and a sense of accomplishment. But too much challenge can lead to us being pushed into the panic zone on the outer circle. If we're pushed into the panic zone, we may experience high levels of stress and anxiety, which can hinder learning and performance. The body's fight or flight response is often activated here, making it difficult to focus on growth. So if we're in the panic zone, we might be feeling completely overwhelmed, stressed, and anxious. But by navigating these zones effectively, individuals can enhance their learning experiences, improve their performance, and achieve personal development goals. Recognizing when to seek comfort, when to go into the stretch zone, and how to avoid panic is essential for maintaining a healthy balance in both personal and professional settings. All of these zones refer to a particular emotional reaction to a situation, which is where we connect back to self-doubt and inner critic. So in the stretch or panic mode, inner critic may surface again, saying things like, "You can't cope with this. What do you think you're doing? Who do you think you are?" For example. We don't have feelings of self-doubt in the comfort zone, but the inner critic might arise in the stretch zone in order to protect us from going into panic mode. And the inner critic's purpose is really to protect us, but this can be a blocker to growth. So sadly, our inner critic is always going to be with us, but there are ways of managing it. By choosing to do a fellowship or taking on a leadership role, we're choosing to stretch ourselves, which is where the learning happens. And once we know this, we can predict where the inner critic might show up. Choosing or having to stretch ourselves awakens the inner critic. So, an example of this happened to me recently, and although it's not from a leadership angle, I thought I'd share the story with you. I decided to learn a brass instrument because my kids were learning brass instruments. So, I had to do, in order to do this, I had to sit in the junior brass band with my kids as they learned. And I really stretched my brain to learn to be able to play. For a while, it was going well, and now I've joined the senior band, where I'm again stretching my abilities. But choosing to be in that stretch zone allowed me to learn and improve my abilities playing. So, only with increased challenge do we increase our performance. However, we don't want to push ourselves so much that we go into the panic zone, which is shown on this graph here. We all have a unique inner critic voice telling us a unique set of justifications for why we should do or not do something, or why we should or should not believe something. And these beliefs surround us in a thick coat of armour to protect us being vulnerable to failure or humiliation. But it also can keep us still and restricts us from developing and learning. Our inner critic has been developing as long as we have and has had the same education as we have had. So it's as clever as us and very good at giving us a convincing case for why we should listen to it. There's usually an element of truth in the things it says to us, but its view of the world has been developed to protect us from threats that we have encountered during our lifetime that may not be present anymore. So, for example, a strict teacher, a competitive sibling, or a bully at school, an accident or a big failure that we had. Our inner critic is trying to prevent us from suffering harm again or from entering into our panic zone. The armour that we build up can now weigh us down and can stop progress. But it's possible that the threats that did exist once are no longer there. But if they are, we are now better equipped to deal with them. A good metaphor for this and to describe this concept is that it's like running old software, such as old beliefs and behaviours, on a new computer where we have new skills, confidence, and experience. And it can slow us down and stop us being as productive as we have the potential to be. Throughout this leadership programme, we'll look at ways to upgrade our software. I'm now going to hand over to Gabrielle to talk about one element of a strong inner critic, and that's imposter syndrome. Gabrielle.
Yeah, so give me a thumbs up how many of you obviously have heard of imposter syndrome, and if you think you've got an imposter syndrome. Let's see all the thumbs. Yeah, I think a lot of us heard about it or potentially even, have it ourselves. So when I did my PhD, I only found out about the imposter syndrome towards the end of my PhD. And oh my God, that was an opening. I actually realized that a lot of other people have the same feeling. I literally didn't even know that the thing existed. And then it was quite good to put the name to the feeling that you have personally. Give me a thumbs up if you've never felt imposter syndrome, because that would be interesting. And imposter syndrome is basically what it says on the screen, a collection of feelings of inadequacy that could persist over, despite evident success. So we've got no thumbs up, or potentially should say thumbs down. But if anyone has never felt imposter syndrome, it's very likely that people around you, or perhaps people that the team that you lead or people you work with, will very likely be having this feeling. And even though we call it a syndrome, it's probably not a healthy term to use, because syndrome basically refers to something that happens chronically. And if it is really a full-blown full-blown feeling of imposter syndrome, perhaps it can lead to a syndrome, but more useful terms would be imposter phenomenon. So sometimes you get these situations where you start feeling like an imposter. So yeah, and it is actually a really healthy, not a really healthy, but a healthy thing to have, because it's just who we are as humans, and this is something that basically happens. So next I'll show you a series, very quickly show you a series of some comic strips, and again, give me thumbs up or hearts or whatever if you feel like you can relate. So this one is saying types of people who can have imposter syndrome, and basically 100% it's all the smart, successful people that you think have their shit together. And we're gonna have to beep that S word. Yeah, we can all relate to this. Next, Patty. All compliments you receive, the majority will be coming from someone who is definitely lying. And then, maybe a small proportion of them will come from nice relatives who don't know what the hell they're talking about. Anytime we receive a compliment, someone saying you've done an excellent job, there's probably that feeling of saying, they're lying. Oh, they're just being nice to me. It's probably just my mom saying that. Yeah, a lot of us can relate to this, can't we? This one. So, probably maybe you've taken on a new job or you've taken on a new project. So this, the immediate thought is, oh God, this project will be a disaster. Once you've done it, okay, I finished it and it wasn't a disaster. And then you have to get on to do something again. And you're like, oh God, I have to do a new project now again. So you've got these, the cycle of imposter syndrome. And yeah, we have some thumbs up flying in. Next, Patty. Thoughts you have on the first day of a new job. So imagine yourself on the first day of your new job. And, the majority of thoughts will probably be, my boss is going to realize I was a huge mistake. They should have gone for someone else. And slightly different thoughts. Oh, hi. Slightly different thought will be, my boss will realize I was a huge mistake. So yeah. It's again, it's just our inner critic coming on the day of the first job and thinking, this is out of my comfort zone. I need to, get going. Reasons why you won an award. An award was extremely easy to win. Like, everyone was a winner, or award was for participation. So again, not being able to realize that you received something because you're actually good at this and we need to celebrate it. Again, your thoughts when someone says that you would be good for a job, role, team. So maybe someone has, forwarded a job application or a fellowship application, call, think something like that. Your immediate thought, what? Why? Have you met me? Maybe you're just trying to be nice, or maybe you're even thinking like, oh, maybe that they've sent it to the wrong person. Again, just that feeling of inadequacy, thinking that, it really can't be me. So the top, what do you think you are? A hot, crazy truck fire mess of a person who disappoints important people, who others think of you that you are absolutely cool and fine. So again, the way we see ourselves and the way other people see us, it can be very different. So what we're going to do now is we've mentioned a breakout room, and this might be just the only breakout room that we do today, but we might keep a surprise up our sleeve. So we're going to break for maybe 10 minutes or so. Please don't leave. If you don't want to go into a breakout room, just, stay in the main room. But what we're going to do in the breakout rooms is we're going to ask you to think about the situations or the times when you felt an imposter syndrome. This could be your academic life, this could be your research context, this could be, again, the first day at work, all these kind of, or maybe even in your personal life, it doesn't really matter. When did the imposter syndrome manifest? So just create a list of these situations, have a chat with others, maybe, just think about, can you relate to each other's situation? And we'll come back in maybe 10 minutes. We'll give everyone 10 minutes.
Hey, so it's back over to me for the next bit. Hope everybody's just coming back into the main room now. And hope you had some good discussions in your breakout rooms about when the inner critic might get noisy. So, would anybody be willing to share what was discussed in their room? You don't have to share, but if anybody wants to share something, again, this bit can be edited out of the video. Yeah, Victoria.
Um, just we had towards the end we had a really nice discussion about kind of managing our inner critic with kind of experience and time, and we talked about how it was helpful to have a bit of, when you feel that inner critic voice becoming dominant, whether it's, over a small thing or a really, really big thing, having a little bit of space and time to just kind of work through it. And, if it's asking the question, if it's saying, you're not good enough to do your job, and then listing all the reasons why you are good enough to do your job and about how you interviewed for your job and all the things that you've achieved in your job. And then we had a really nice little discussion about having an inner 8-year-old. One of our group members had been, hearing the inner critic when they were maybe going to go for a job, and voiced this to their 8-year-old, and their 8-year-old son said, well, it will either be not very good or it'll be amazing, so why don't you just do it? And then we all agreed that having an 8-year-old just dampen things down is a good antidote to the inner critic.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And yeah, absolutely thinking about getting a different perspective from a child who also has a different perspective is very good and very helpful sometimes. So yeah, it's thinking about the battle that we're having in our heads all the time and overcoming that battle and to quiet the inner critic. Anybody else want to share? Tiago, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'll share a little bit. I mean, it's not really a reflection of the group. I feel that in a way it's a little, these things are a little bit personal, and I wouldn't want to talk for everyone. But it was a very nice discussion and conversation. And one of the things I shared, which I think is important, and I hadn't realized for a while, is one, which situations do I feel imposter syndrome? Pretty much every day since I wake up till the evening. But the other one is that I've come to realize, and maybe this is very obvious in hindsight, was not obvious for a while, that it's not something that will be able to be, shook off based on results. It's not, you can't ever beat it by being better or more efficient. You just have to beat it within your head, because otherwise you're always going to feel that you're sort of behind and failing to meet someone else's expectations when all the expectations are really just in your head.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. So, um, just thinking about, the fact that our inner critic will always be with us, but it's getting some strategies in order to quieten it a bit. And yeah, sometimes just getting different perspectives. So Vanny has put in the chat, she once read we should make decisions that our inner 8-year-olds and future 80-year-olds would be proud of. So that's another way of looking at it, getting the young and the old perspectives and not the now. But thinking about the facts as well, and we'll get on to that in a moment. So thanks for sharing those thoughts, Tiago. But absolutely, the inner critic's always going to be there. But really, it's just taming that inner critic. So we all have our own set of situations where our inner critic senses danger and it appears in our consciousness, telling us how inadequate we are or how other people think negative things of us or that we will humiliate ourselves in some way. So some situations that researchers have said where their inner critic gets noisy include sharing a first draft of a paper or a report when it's not been polished yet or worked on for hours and hours and hours. Presenting in meetings or at conferences. So again, this is a place where we are then slightly vulnerable, standing up in front of experts in our field, and we think, oh, we're going to get found out here. Sharing ideas in meetings or workshops is another one where sometimes the inner critic comes up. In the presence of senior people or other experts, again, it can be at meetings. Getting praise or feedback or winning prizes or awards, we feel like we don't deserve those things. Again, we tell ourselves, well, why should I, why do I win an award? I don't deserve that. Teaching or supervising others, again, it's being seen as an expert. Interviews, applying for jobs or a promotion or another other places where the inner critic shows up. And at the start of a task or a job. So yeah, I remember starting this job a few years ago thinking, I'm moving from working for myself into an institution, and there was a lot of new things to learn. So I think that was quite overwhelming, and the inner critic came up quite a lot at that point. So we all have our own trigger situations, but again, it's about noticing that all these examples actually are opportunities for or evidence of us progressing, developing or learning something new. So it's really just part and parcel of that process. So not to be too scared of it. Can anybody think of behaviours that get acted out when someone is in the grip of their inner critic, self-doubt, or perfectionism? You can put it into the chat if you like, or you can raise your hand. Anybody want to have a go at that? Yep, behaviours. So yeah, procrastination, apologising, procrastination, aggression. Yep. So those are some behaviours that might get acted out when the inner critic comes up. So yeah, so over apologising or constantly explaining yourself, second guessing your decisions after they're made. So I certainly went through a lot of second guessing with things that I was doing when I moved into this role. Defensiveness or just shutting down altogether, turning off your creativity, discounting praise, people pleasing to avoid disapproval, comparing yourself obsessively to others. So this is sometimes where social media comes in, because we see what other people are doing. We look at their successes and we think, oh, I'll never be as good as that. I'll never do that. Harsh self-talk is another one, after minor mistakes, telling yourself you're so stupid, etc., etc. And then self-doubt behaviours are things like avoiding opportunities unless you feel 100% ready. So you might turn down, an invitation to talk at a conference because you're not fully confident in what you're presenting. You might have paralysis over making small choices and being indecisive, holding back opinions and procrastinating over something for fear of being exposed. And then perfection behaviours are overworking, over preparing, difficulty starting something, micromanaging yourself or others, delaying completing something because it's not quite right yet. And finally, burnout, which a lot of academics do tend to suffer from, but this is masked as sort of high standards. There's a few others that have come into the chat while I've been going through those. So counting yourself out of opportunities, as I said, it's not a behaviour, but positive feedback, looking into depression, look equals loop, self-sabotage, yep. One-upmanship feeds others, self-doubt protects your own, and yep, over-preparing. So again, we can be guilty of all these things. And even in preparation for this session, because it's the first time that I've delivered this content, I normally deliver workshops on the visual presentation of research, and that's my comfort zone, and I can just swan in, do it, and go out because I've done it 100 times, and then this is the first time. So last night I was avidly reading books about inner critic, and actually I don't know that if it's enhanced this session at all, but it's over preparation. So obviously, all of these behaviours can be detrimental. So as a leader of a team, we need to create an environment where people don't feel fearful or have imposter feelings. So does anybody have any ideas about what you could do to create a safe environment? Very commonly, research students will say that they feel like imposters when they're with their supervisors, and the same is true of postdocs, etc. If we're thinking about the implications of that on their performance, it's not great. So how does anybody have ideas they'd like to share about how they create that safe space for people? Yep. So we've got one here which is about being open with your own mistakes. So owning up to mistakes is a good one, because it allows others to then mirror that behaviour. Not believing the positive feedback, says Julie. Telling them that they're an expert in this, yes, absolutely. So getting people to kind of own it and know that they're the experts in their field, and in the whole world, they're the person who knows the most about a topic. Remind them of the things they're good at. Yep, absolutely. Be a role model and open up to own mistakes. Apologise when you get it wrong and move on. And then somebody's saying here they usually tell a Michael Jackson anecdote or similar about their imposter syndrome. Modelling a pragmatic approach to work, not an all or nothing approach. Focus on the next small step instead of the imagined goal. That's a really good one. So breaking things down into small, manageable chunks that people can do. I really like that one. Thank you for that. And then a strengths-based approach. So what is everyone contributing? So absolutely, all of these ideas are really great in terms of creating that safe space. Okay, so we're just going to do a short exercise now to think about what's on your inner critic script. And we're not going to share these. It's just something for you to think about yourself. Here's some examples. It's basically a strategy to help us manage our inner critic and to separate out the voice of our inner critic and learn the types of thing it says to us. So asking your inner critic what is on its regular script. Everyone's inner critic reads from a slightly different script, as we've all had unique developmental experiences, beliefs, and vulnerabilities. So these are some examples here from other people's critic scripts. You might recognise some of the things this person's inner writing critic says. So, that's stupid, or don't even bother. Your writing sucks. Nobody's going to read this piece of junk. That doesn't even make sense. This is too boring. Why are you writing that? Worst beginning ever. You should just stop. Whatever, whatever. So just some examples there. Yeah. And here's some more examples. You sound so stupid. Stupid. Come on, be quicker, be better right now. So and so is much better at this than you. Everyone is bored by what you're saying. You're not being very creative. They all know more than you, so just stop talking. You have nothing valuable to offer. This is all you have managed to achieve today. You're so lazy, and they're laughing at you. So some of these things here just illustrate what might be on an inner critic script. So we're going to have a go, as I said, to take 5 minutes to have a go at writing your own script. And once you've written a few things down, you might be more likely to notice these phrases when you encounter them. You might want to give your inner critic a name to start distinguishing them from your own voice. So I think one of the examples that we were given around this was calling the inner critic Nigel. So apologies to if there's any Nigels on the call. Nigel has a job to do, and when they're not busy, they're snoozing and relaxing. But when we move out of our comfort zone, Nigel wakens up and he tries to move us back or keep us in a place of comfort. So these inner critics, they'll do a manner of things to keep us out of stretch and panic. But we need to be conscious of what Nigel is saying and don't confuse them with our real voice, which is the optimistic and positive voice that says, you can do this. Thank you, I've got this covered. So just take 5 minutes to have a think about this and write some things down on a piece of paper that your inner critic says to you. So I'll come back in at 12 o'clock once you've had a chance to write down some things on your inner critic script. Okay, so that's probably long enough for you to write down a few things that's on your inner critic's script. Did anybody give their inner critic a name or a persona? You could pop it in the chat if you want to. Anybody name their inner critic? Dr. Doubt. I love it. Very nice. Thank you for sharing that one. Okay. Dobby. Yep. Like it. The witness. Mm-hmm. So now, you can start a conversation with your inner critic, and separate it out from your own voice. This cartoon here also highlights what we tend to do when the inner critic is on. We tend to filter out the positives and hone in on the one negative comment. So just to let you know as well that Nigel, the inner critic, is also a database manager who keeps a record of all the times you've done something badly, been criticised, failed. But they will showcase this data to justify why you should stay in your comfort zone. They also don't record any of the successes in their database. So, for example, if you find yourself brushing off a compliment, that's Nigel refusing to put the data into the database. So this is why it's good to keep a folder of successes or all your emails where you've had something really positive fed back to you or you've succeeded at something. So this can be called the sunshine file, the gentle brag folder, or shit, I am hot folder. So that when you feel the inner critic surfacing, you can push back and remind yourself of some success stories. I'm certainly, guilty of this when we, as facilitators, we're always asking for feedback and evaluation. And quite often you get a lot of very positive feedback, but if you get one negative comment, you just hone in like I don't know, like an eagle catching a mouse, that one negative comment. So, yeah, it's very difficult to overcome that, but I think it's really important that you do then remember all the positive feedback that you've received as well, and it's the same is true for all the sort of successes that you've had, publications, awards, fellowships, etc. So remember all those good things that you've done to get you where you are now. And this filtering process sort of leads us to believe the cartoon that's shown on the left here, which is that I know very little, and I think that everybody else knows a whole lot more than me. And this is why, the result being that we don't speak up in meetings or put ourselves forward for opportunities. However, if we focus on the facts and what's more likely to be true, then we realise that by sharing what we know and putting ourselves forward, not only are we finding out where our boundaries really are, we're also helping others to learn more at the same time. So this is the cartoon on the right-hand side and the reality. And I think that's what you were referring to, Tiago, there was like basically the voice of reason in your head, and looking at the facts of the situation. And we just make some scenarios up in our head sometimes that are not truth. So, yeah, there's a few comments coming in there as well. Anyone else turning red from recognition? Yes, definitely. No negative comments allowed, only constructive feedback. And I look good in red. Very good. Good way to frame it. Okay, so I'm just going to hand you back now to Gabrielle, who will close off for the session with a few more thoughts. Thank you, Gabrielle.
No worries. Yeah, so I guess when that inner critic comes out, like somebody was saying, just, think about taking your time. Maybe you've got an invitation to be a guest speaker or, something like that. And you feel like, that inner critic is yapping at you saying like, no, don't do it. You're going to fail or something like that. Think about, taking time and employ an expert panel, an impartial expert panel. And obviously we're all academics and researchers in this room, so we love a hypothesis. So put a hypothesis to your panel. That could be legit that, like you should not take this opportunity or something like that. And think about, getting this expert panel to really look at all the evidence that exists and potentially giving them all a role as well. So, if you were working in a company, you would probably be having a board of directors. So, they will all bring different perspective to your party, and, they will all act, they will have all a different role. So, Vari, if we could move the slide to next. So, so what you could do, go back. Yeah, so assigning, a role for all of your expert panels when it comes to the hypothesis. So for example, one of them could be your future self. So I think someone was saying, maybe you're 80 when you're an 80-year-old. So, imagine what would it be like, what would be your values? What would you be thinking when you're 80? And perhaps this is your younger self as well. So what if you were 8 years old again? Would this be something that you're proud of and you would be wanting to go for? Maybe another role could be your role model. So this is someone who is, someone you're looking up to. Maybe this is, I don't know, someone famous that you really kind of admire, or, something like that. Could be your critical friend. So this is someone who you trust, but the people who can give you kind of the role who can give you constructive feedback. And this is what I said in the chat, not negative comments, but really constructive feedback and looking at the previous kind of evidence, but someone you really, really trust. One of your board of directors could be your mentor. So again, this is someone, someone, again, maybe 5 years more experience than you, someone who's been in a similar field or in a similar experience, someone who could give you basic advice, someone else, your cheerleader. And it doesn't have to be your work mate, or this could literally be your mom or your friend, someone who is always there cheering on you. They don't know what you're doing. They don't understand your, super duper good research, but they're always there for you, cheering on you. So that's someone who's, probably would say like, this is an amazing achievement, go for it. Your competitor. So why would you have a competitor on your board of directors or on your panel? This is probably someone, in a similar field, someone in a similar situation as you, perhaps also looking to, get that promotion together. But they could also be your collaborators. So at the same time, they could have this kind of dual hat, or and basically they could be thinking, they would be thinking, obviously, don't do this, don't go for this beautiful fellowship. But they could also say, like, if you go for it, that means we're going to have a bit more money to get this research going. So apply, kind of give yourself time when this inner critic is talking to you, when the Nigel is in your ear, and basically like put a hypothesis in front of an expert panel, and all of them have a different perspective. So does anyone ever do that? I guess we previously had someone sharing that, you take a moment and look at all the different achievements and your wins. Do you ever consult a board of directors, or when a tricky decision comes? I suspect no one takes. Let's sing. Sometimes thinking about where your future self will, whether your future self will care about this or not. Does it actually align with your values and the career trajectory, or just like the life trajectory that you want to take? Someone has only ever done this one person at a time, so not really. This is a new way of thinking about all of these different important people. Julie, you've got your hand up. Feel free to unmute.
Yes, thank you. I think I'm quite lucky in the role that I am now, that we're quite a big team and across institutions. Perhaps you've heard of us, Wearing Frame. And like Catherine said, it's usually one person at a time. But what I have found with Teaming Frame is that when I go to like a colleague because I want to nag about something, right? Or something is like some feedback has been given and it's not like the thing that like, makes your day. And then it comes up that there is a deeper issue there that is recognized by other people. And I have found this to be deep relief actually, because it takes the burden of like, you're the troublemaker, you're the one that expresses the problem, or you're the only one that feels this way. And it like I don't like it's a cliche, but when you like a problem shared is a problem halved. This has been to the T experienced so many times, and the more people you then discuss it with, like you talk to the one person, they're like, oh, I've been like this, and then that makes you feel a little bit more like, oh, I'm not alone. And then you'll talk about it with someone else, and someone else will tell you, oh, yes, I have had glimpses of that. And then all of a sudden it becomes like, oh, you know what? I think there is like a cultural problem or like an environment problem, and maybe we should address it. And then all of a sudden it becomes so much less. So I don't know if I could call them board of directors, but they are my immediate, group of like peers that would understand what I'm talking about, and I would go to them every time. That's what I'm finding.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks for sharing. So obviously you're employing a real board of directors. You're actually using real people, giving them, maybe not a role, but, for this exercise or kind of this tool that we're talking about, it is more kind of theoretically, if you're just by yourself, because there will be some obviously situations where you can share some of the things you're dealing with, or some of the decisions you want to take, or something that the inner critic is talking to you. So you will need to kind of make these all by yourself. So again, just thinking about your kind of rhetorical board of directors, or the non-existing not real people role. So yeah, thanks for sharing. Hopefully this is a useful tool, and you can think in the future situations whether if you're getting an invitation to go somewhere, or you're thinking whether to go for a promotion or apply for a new job, you'll be kind of employing this type of external impartial panel. And the final thing that we're going to do now is also another way of kind of feeding the positive data to ourselves, or to that database that we were talking about, that old software. We need to keep updating it, so that it's not always looking into just the kind of the negatives, or maybe hurtful situations that were in the past. So another thing you can do is actually start practicing gratitude, or and an exercise that we're going to do this is called daily 3-2-1. So thinking about the 3 wins, obviously we're only at 12 o'clock just now, but maybe later today you can sit down and think about what are those 3 wins that you've achieved today. And it doesn't need to be anything like submitting grant funding, or winning a grant funding. Just could be simple 3 things that you consider as a win. Earlier we found how to add an icon, how you add a little mug of coffee to your kind of the participant face that you can update that you're away, so that could count as your win. Think about 2 strengths or skills used. Again, this is something that perhaps you've asked a question, or you've shared your experience. Think about the situations where you've used your skills. And then finally, 1 positive feeling experienced. Think about that wheel, the emotional wheel that we talked about. There are so many different emotions, and I don't know, I'm guilty of this. If anyone ever asks me, probably I say like, yeah, I'm fine. Fine is not really a feeling. So let's try and kind of, think about the actual word, the actual feeling that we're experiencing. So, we've done this beautifully at the beginning of the session. So what we're going to do now is think about this for 5 minutes, just for yourself. Think about, either this morning, your 3-2-1s, or maybe you can think about yesterday or your weekend. So try and think about your 3 wins, 2 skills or strengths, and also 1 positive feeling. And if you're thinking that, what are we even talking about? Why are we doing this mindful gratitude thing? It is probably your inner critic telling you like this is a load of rubbish. Don't be thinking about this. Don't be thinking about your wins. There's no time to do this. We just need to focus on the negative experience. This is your inner critic, the Nigel or whatever it was, the Miranda that we had in the chat, or Mr. Doubt, Dr. Doubt. That's probably them telling you not to spend these 5 minutes thinking about the wins or all the good stuff that happened. So I'm going to stay quiet and give you those 5 minutes to write them down. And we won't ask you to share it. You can keep this very, very to yourself. Hope you give this a shot. Did anyone's inner critic came out and said, no, don't think about this? Oh, was it quite a refreshing thing to do as well, just to take a moment to, write down those wins or the warm feelings that positive feelings that you're experiencing. So hopefully, this was a useful exercise, and perhaps you could always block 5 minutes out in your diary at the end of the day, thinking about, what are these three wins, 2 strengths, and 1 positive feeling. Because you'll probably be aware that there's a lot of research being done on obviously people who practice gratitude, and they do basically show that people become more resilient leaders, they're more optimistic, and even, probably have fewer health issues. Because it's all to do with our hormones and things like that. So it's a good thing to try and practice. If you can't do it daily, maybe put a Friday evening 5-minute reflection and just think about the 3, 2, 1. So what we're going to do now is just start wrapping up for today, because we have about 10 minutes left. So the key messages that we've kind of been looking at is, that having that inner noisy critic, and obviously the imposter syndrome, feelings or phenomenon is completely normal. And particularly if you're a research leader or if you're aspiring to be a research leader. And as you'll probably get in the materials, you'll see that this is in the FLF 360 feedback coaching exercises. This was very evident. When you enter your stretch zone, you will provoke those inner critic or imposter syndrome feelings. Stepping into leadership can be, and it will be stressful for all. So, that's you stretching yourself, that's you coming out of the comfort zone. And finally, even if you do not experience these feelings yourself, although we've identified that pretty much everyone in the room does often feel this, it is almost guaranteed that someone else in your team or your colleagues will. So it is important to kind of keep an eye, observe how other people are feeling, taking these opportunities to notice and obviously support them. So hopefully, using the tools that we talked about, the emotions wheel of emotions, and the kind of expert panel, you'll be able to be equipped, or you'll be able to kind of start practicing how to understand, how to notice, and obviously how to deal with your inner critic, and also notice it during your day-to-day. Maybe when you're preparing for the next meeting, or you're preparing for your conference and things like that, you'll be able to kind of get back into yourself and take a moment to reflect and understand how you feel. With that, I would like to again share another link in the chat. That's going to be super useful. If you could please do the post-session evaluation form. It looks very similar to the pre-session form, so please take your time. We're going to be hanging around for the next few minutes. Please take a couple of minutes to fill this out. Hopefully when we read, Vari and I will be getting some of these positive feelings. Like I said, no negative comments, just just constructive feedback, please. But thanks so much for joining. And obviously, this is just the second session out of the whole series. The next one will be on the 16th of March at the same time, 11 till 12:30, and we'll be talking about how to build effective research teams. So super useful and obviously hot topic, especially when you're thinking about becoming a leader, or maybe you are a leader. So again, thanks for taking the time out of your day. We know we're all very stretched and busy, so it's great to have you. And obviously, thanks so much, Vari, for co-facilitating with me.
Thank you, everybody, for coming along today. We've really enjoyed delivering the session. Any questions that you have, you can also email hello@srln@outlook.com, and the recording of the session will be put up fairly shortly onto the YouTube channel, but we'll try and send you a recording after the session today and the slides as well. Thanks, everybody.